Okay, welcome everyone. Welcome to What the F is Going On in Latin America and the Caribbean, a popular resistance broadcast of hot news out of the region. In partnership with Black Alliance for Peace Haiti America's team, CODEPINK, Common Frontiers, Council on Hemispheric Affairs, Friends of Latin America, Interreligious Task Force on Central America, Massachusetts Peace Action, and Task Force on the Americas, we broadcast live every Thursday on YouTube, to the CODEPINK Action channel, the Convo Couch channel, and Popular Resistance Org channel. Post-broadcast recordings can be found at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Telegram, Rad Indie Media, and now under podcasts at popularresistance.org. Today's episode, Asylum for Sale, Profit and Protest in the Migration Industry. And I'm happy to introduce all of you to our guest. She's activist and friend, anthropologist, Embassy Protection Collective member, Adrienne Pine. And she is author, and I'll just introduce her professionally. She is author and medical anthropologist. For the past 17 years, she has worked in U.S. federal asylum courts as a country conditions expert for Honduras asylum seekers in more than 100 asylum cases. And the title of this evening's episode is based on her book, which was published by PM in, I think, November of 2020, Adrienne, correct? And so let me give you a brief description of that particular book, because I think that's a good opening to the conversation that we want to have in this episode. And also, just for all of you, Adrienne and I felt that this was a particularly good conversation to have this week on the heels of last week's episode and last week's Tres Amigos summit here in Mexico City. So a bit about the book, Asylum for Sale. Through essays, artworks, photographs, infographics, and illustrations, Asylum for Sale, Profit and Protest in the Migration Industry regards the global asylum regime as an industry characterized by profit-making activity, including brokers who facilitate border crossings for a fee, contractors and firms that erect walls, fences, and watchtowers while lobbying governments for bigger security budgets, corporations running private detention centers and managing deportations, private lawyers charging exorbitant fees, expert witnesses and NGO staff establishing careers while placing asylum seekers into new regimes of monitored vulnerability. Humanity is not for sale and no one is illegal. So where should we start with this, Adrienne? So this is so much to unpack, and I just, as I want to share with the audience, as I shared with Adrienne just before we went live, that the book is really, it's a lot. And really the fundamental, what I got out of it, because it talks not just about, you know, our area of work in Latin America and the Caribbean, but global, specific to the global South, and the effects of imperialism, neoliberal capitalism, and how a what do you call it, like a subservient class of workers, of labor, is the objective of denying migration to many, many people. And I would argue this, the new Immigration Act for the US, which allows migrants to apply for visas, et cetera, via an app, that requires a person who has a smartphone, an active data account, and then I think you also have to arrive by air. So that's a very, very specific thing that's going on there. A very specific group of people.
Yeah, absolutely. And first of all, thank you so much, Terry, for having me. This is such an important program that you have, and I've really enjoyed it and really enjoyed seeing it grow now that it's with Popular Resistance, which of course I have such a strong affinity for as well. And yeah, we're in a really kind of telling moment about asylum, in particular, if we look back at the past decade, because what we have is, let's see, I mean, even starting around 2014 with the whole unaccompanied minor crisis, or so-called unaccompanied minor crisis. If you know, folks remember that, there were a lot of unaccompanied minors that were coming to the border, unaccompanied children and teenagers, many of them coming from Honduras, and that was designated a crisis, and Joe Biden, as vice president, was put in charge of it. And what did he do? Well, first we saw a discourse about the fact that children and teenagers were coming without their parents as being evidence of bad parenting and of really cultural deficiencies in Honduras and the Northern Triangle, rather than a focus on what the real causes of migration are, wherever we're talking about in Latin America, which first and foremost have to do with US neoliberal imperialism and neoliberal fascism. So whether we're talking about Venezuela with the US sanctions that have